we have to start off with the Milan Derby, which was so sensational, especially in the first half. It was a 1-1 draw at San Siro. And basically, a lot of people have thought Milan were better in the first half, then Inter came back, and then it was Milan towards the end. But Gab, was there a team for you that ought to have won this whole thing?
I think it was a classic game where both teams could have won, and it wouldn't have been a scandal. It would have been deserved. Whether you think back to the Kessie chance, Salamakers hitting the woodwork, or indeed on the other end, obviously Lautaro missing the penalty, the Vidal chance as well. But I thought a draw was a fair result, and I liked, like, as a neutral, I think you would have liked everything about this game. The way the two teams approached it, they wanted to win more than they wanted to avoid losing, which is, not something to be taken granted when it comes to derbies. Even the referee, and, people will go and maybe question, but the more I see the penalty that Kessie gave away, the more I think to myself, even just 5 years ago, the referee would have blown up for a foul, the minute Calhanoglu's leg comes across, right? But here they let it go because, they kind of embrace the fact that you can't give these ticky-tacky fouls all the time. It's not necessarily what people want. And, so I thought it was all good, right down to Calhanoglu trolling the Milan fans.
I love that. I have to admit, I love that as well. There was so much pettiness going on in general. And you expect that. It was wonderful, right? I know it's stupid, but like when you haven't had a Milan derby in this long, and I think right from the sort of opening choreography where the Milan fans did this extraordinary choreography saying thank you to the nurses and doctors who worked through the pandemic. Incredible, like classic derby choreography of the sort we haven't seen since before the pandemic. Spilling down 3 tiers and drama. And at the other end, you've got Inter, who've just done a picture of an ultra. Still an impressive choreography, by the way. It still takes up a whole tier. And a picture of an ultra with the Scudetto and a Milan fan in a jester hat crying in the background, which just looks so petty when you square it against the thank you to the doctors and the nurses. And a little part of my brain even thought, do you think the Milan fans thought to themselves, if we do something that's grandiose and they do something about themselves, it's going to make them look even worse? I don't know if I'm going too far with my reading of that one. But that, and then Calhanoglu, who doesn't really have any reason to hate Milan. They offered him a new contract. They wanted him to stay. He wasn't like he was kicked out. He just left. And far from being this sort of classic thing we see in Serie A all the time, we see it so often, oh no, I won't celebrate against my old team. He actually goes and does immediately the hands behind the ears, what are you saying about me? Celebration to the Milan fans. I loved that, even though it was so petty.
Yeah,
it's funny because... Oh, sorry.
No, sorry. I was just going to say, I don't particularly like Calhanoglu. I don't think he's that good. Although he had a tremendous game, and I think Milan were totally correct in saying, "All right, dude, you're only worth so much, and this is what we're going to offer you." And he didn't take it, and he found somebody across town who was willing to give him more than that, and so fair play to him. He walked the walk, and now he gets to go and crow about it. I really have no problem. I mean, some people in Italy saying, well, that's disrespectful. They compared it to Ibrahimovic trying to wind up the crowd. I thought I had no problem with that whatsoever.
I totally agree with you. I think that what was interesting about this is everyone was saying Hakan was the last to come into the Inter dressing room. Well, he was saying hello to Paolo Maldini, to Stefano Pioli. Everyone was hugging and kissing him. So it really doesn't look like he is on bad terms with anyone at Milan, and he just chose somewhere that he felt that he was getting everything that he wanted, which begs the question, why is he trolling the fans? Because he says, when I walk around Milan, they all want to pose for pictures with me. But I guess what I wanted to ask you...
I think he just enjoys it. I think he was just having fun. I really do. And that's kind of what I love about it. Because if I'm being honest, I'm no athlete really, but I feel like I would be the sort of person, if I was in that position, where I would be like, oh no, I'm going to be apologetic about it. I'm going to not want to upset people. But I think because I'm like that, sometimes seeing someone who just unashamedly is like, no, I'm loving this. I'm loving being the person who threw some mud back in your eye. Sometimes it's fun. Sometimes it's fun to.
Is that why
watch
you're
someone do
friends
that.
with Gab and I? Because we are that person.
Do you
You're
think
right.
you would? I was going to ask you guys that. Would you celebrate against your former teams? I want to know if you guys would.
I walk
think
the walk, but I don't talk the talk. Sorry. What about you, Gab?
It all depends how you leave them. Look, obviously at an individual level, you know, those were his teammates and stuff like that. But I can see from the fans' perspective, you're the guy who turned down our offer and you walked on a free transfer and you walked across town for our big rivals. He's obviously not the first person to play for both Milan clubs, but I can understand them being annoyed. And from his perspective, you know, it hurts when people don't believe in you. You know, he felt he had a good season. Not so much, I think, the last year, but the year before that. But I don't think Hakan Calhanoglu had a tremendous game. I think Milan made the right decision. I don't think it's the right signing for Inter either, personally, in the long term. But hey, this is his moment. I love the way he grabbed the ball from Lautaro to take the penalty when he wasn't a designated penalty taker. You know, he absolutely deserves this, and he gets to enjoy it.
You know,
I agree.
It's funny because Calhanoglu sometimes just really disappears from matches, and it's sometimes when it seems like he needs to step up, he does know how to step up. So I wonder if it is a mental thing. But I wanted to ask you guys, because you obviously mentioned that he took the ball from Lautaro Martinez and he scored the penalty. Were you both a little bit disappointed with the attacking force of both teams? You know, neither Zlatan nor Dzeko really played their best game. Was it a game that was always going to be played through the middle, that was going to be a little bit gritty? And do you wonder somehow, I just feel like when I watch Milan, that it all looks a little bit messy sometimes, you know, not so refined and controlled. And whether or not they lack a little bit of physicality. You know, Brahim Diaz, Leao, so easily knocked off the ball when Inter just really try to take control of things. Is that what's missing for Milan also from the point of Europe?
I'll let Gab go first on it.
Yeah. I don't think so. I think you have to kind of interpret the game. And the minute you saw from the first minute that this is going to be sort of a high intensity game, Milan said, fine, we'll go ahead and we'll match you in that. You know, the holy grail is matching quality with intensity, right? If you watch Manchester City play and you see Kevin De Bruyne and Bernardo Silva, who are far more talented than anybody at Milan not named Zlatan, they also bring that intensity, right? And they manage to do it even though they're smaller, lighter players. That's where you want to get to. You know, Brahim Diaz is a little guy. I did not think he had a good game, but I think also because he's played out wide, which he hasn't done in a while. I think he's probably better in the middle. But, you know, that's what you want. You want those guys to interpret the game that way. And if that means that you lose your shape a little bit sometimes, you know, that's okay. We're not playing table football here. You know, it's a dynamic, fluid sport. And I think sometimes it's much better to go and bring that energy than it is to necessarily rigorously keep your shape.
Yeah, I don't know if I had a problem with the attacking as it was. I mean, actually, both teams had great chances. Gab's already alluded to it. Barella absolutely should score for Inter at the end of the first half. They missed a penalty as well. And Kessie had that great chance for Milan at the end. I thought that Inter were the better team overall. I think that Brozovic took a while to find his place in the game, but once he found it, especially in the second half, it really swung in Inter's direction for quite a long time. I think Inter have had, and maybe continue to have, a problem with the form of Lautaro. So the fascinating thing about Calhanoglu taking that penalty is, as Gab said, he wasn't the designated penalty taker. Inzaghi confirmed that afterwards. He obviously took it because in that moment he felt like, I just won this penalty, I want to take it. But afterwards, when Tatarusanu saves Lautaro's penalty, Tatarusanu says, I was preparing for Lautaro's penalties. I'd actually practiced these things. I'd spoken to our coaches about him. Whereas Calhanoglu, well, I know him because he was here, but he also knows me really well. So in many ways, it was that moment of not having Lautaro be responsible that actually was how Inter did get their goal. And Lautaro hasn't scored since the last international break. So it's been, I think it's 7 matches he played in between, and he hasn't scored in any of them. That is a concern. That's a real concern for Inter. But I didn't feel like the build-up play was lacking for them. And for Milan, yeah, I'm kind of inclined to agree with Gab. I don't think physicality is what worries me with this team. I think they just play in a quick strike, direct way, and that can suit them really, really well. I felt like in this game, they just lost that fight in the middle of the pitch a little bit. And especially, as I say, once Brozovic really started to be epic Brozo in the second half, I think they lost control of it.
So when I was looking at this, it looked like for me it was more of a task in midfield, in the sense that, we're going to block Brozovic, we're going to try to block Calhanoglu, Barella's going to we're going to try to snap him as well. And I felt like that took away a little bit from the creativity of Milan. But they got so tired, I feel, after the first half, that they started to try to collect their breath in the second half. And that's when, obviously, Brozovic could take control of the match. And for me, that's when Inter started to dominate, is when Milan tired. But then, of course, everyone started talking about Pioli's substitutions, and everyone compared it to Inzaghi, which I think is a little bit unfair. But they said that Pioli knew how to impact the match with his subs in a way that Inzaghi didn't, and perhaps that's why Milan was so strong in the last 10 minutes. Do you agree with that, or do you think it's the subs? Do you think it's bringing on runners like Rebic and Benacer as well, who controlled the ball so well, that made the difference for Milan in the end?
Yeah,
I'll give a really quick answer before kicking it to Gab. The really quick answer is this change happens before the substitutions, because the goal was conceded before substitutions. But Inzaghi's team, Inter, have thrown away 11 points from winning positions this season. And to me, that's a problem. To me, that's enough of a pattern to start saying, yes, he's not getting his substitutions right, whether or not you think it is for this game. But yeah, sorry, Gab, to cut you off.
No, I think to answer me the question, yeah, definitely. I throw Salamakers into the mix as well. When you've had a first half that's so intense, and then all of a sudden, you bring on Speedy Gonzalez, he's going to look that much faster against tired legs. I think increasingly you're seeing this a lot in Serie A, you're seeing this a lot in the Bundesliga as well. With the 5 substitutions, I think a lot of coaches have changed their approach to the game. I think Pioli's a big example of that, because, you can change so much of a team in the second half. They almost have like lines in hockey, right? They have designated people who come on with specific tasks for specific situations. And I thought Pioli did that very well. The one other thing which we haven't mentioned, I just need to give him a shout out just because it was so weird. Theo Hernandez wasn't playing in this game. And he wasn't playing in this game because of that weird second yellow he got when he just kind of fell over. Do you remember that? And he got a second yellow. It is amazing how things impact, because I think if Theo plays this game, it's not going to be an automatic thing. But not only does he make Milan a lot better, while Theo's not flawless defensively, he doesn't get caught out the way Ballo-Touré gets caught out for the penalty. So to me, that just means that we talk about these games in isolation, but there's a whole story that comes before and a story that comes after.
Yeah, I think it's, for once, we all agree it's very fair to end 1-1. It was a great match. I think we saw some great things from both teams. Definitely can't see that there's 7 points separating them. But quickly, Gab, who do you think will finish higher, Inter or Milan?
I think Milan.
I know you hate predictions. That's why I'm doing it.
No, I think Milan will. They're ahead now. Inzaghi's doing a better job than I thought. One other thing I want to mention with Inzaghi in this game is we've seen Inter in a bunch of games this season against Lazio and whatnot, where the intensity of the occasion gets to them and they kind of lose their heads late on. They get nervous and Inzaghi gets sent off, whatever. This didn't happen. This could have happened in this game, but it didn't happen. This was a game where they managed to channel their intensity. They didn't say stupid things. Vidal didn't get sent off, all this other stuff. That, to me, bodes really, really well.
He did miss his chance to win the game, but yes.
Yes, that is entirely true.